When people say let's do something about it, they mean let's get hold of the political machinery so that we can do something to somebody else, and that somebody is invariably you, Frank Chodorov. All right, and with that, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Full Metal Cast, re-recording after I recorded an episode outside in my backyard using some lav mics that turned out to be absolute dog shit quality. So I'm back in my basement talking into a real mic and in my squeaky chair, as you can probably hear. Wow. It's been a minute. After the last episode, heavy minds, heavy hearts, and I've just took time away from screens, from the microphone. Excuse me as I'm getting pop-ups now. I'm going to close out of, so I'm not, distracted. I don't need Discord pinging all night. Fuck you, EA. Just got sold, but anyways. Heavy minds, heavy hearts, took time away from the screens, the microphone, and just spent time. Well, actually, what was supposed to be HTA weekend ended up being a weekend at Xander's compound off grid in the woods in northern Michigan, where most of the group that was scheduled to show up to the Airbnb for HTA this last weekend instead sort of audibled and showed up there to shoot at night, and at the crack of dawn the following day had an awesome time, just completely unplugged, just doing fun, dumb, and stupid shit with the boys, as I'm sure you've seen in the couple of reels where we're on golf carts, blowing up Labubu's and doing other fun, stupid things. Talk a little bit more about that, I think, later. That's just really to explain, my absence. Not like it really matters, but I'm hoping that everyone else who felt sort of weighed down spiritually and emotionally and mentally by a lot of the current events that have dominated national news rather, and rightfully so. Hopefully you're able to find some peace, with yourself, with nature, with friends, with family, with hobbies, with whatever it is. Just enjoying ignorant bliss for the time being. There's nothing wrong with that. Since then, though, since I last spoke, we had the suspension and reinstatement of Jimmy Kimmel. And I'll briefly touch on that because most takes, there's really no more room for nuance in the takes, as everyone sort of has said their piece about it and has their own opinion about it. And what I'm going to say probably isn't that new, and I don't want to be redundant for y'all, but how disappointing it was to see those on the right, the conservatives, the Republican, whatever it is, even the moderates, cheer for the suspension of Kimmel. Now, Disney and ABC have every right to fire, suspend, remove their employees from the air as they see fit. That's freedom. However, what I'm not cool with, and what nobody should be cool with, is the FCC chair Carr, who wears a gold lapel pin of Trump's face on his suit, pressuring the networks to remove Kimmel from the air. That is even more blatant censorship than what we've seen on social media. And just in general, that's one of the most blatant attempts of censorship that we've seen in a very long time. I know there's other attempts by this administration to continue that trend as it relates to what news outlets are allowed to put out regarding our military efforts. I believe I saw a headline saying that all articles and writing have to pass through the administration if it relates to certain topics before being published. And that really takes away from freedom of the press and freedom of speech. Any freedom absolutists, and even if you're a constitutionalist, if you need that, should be pretty up in arms about that, and at least disappointed that what took place did. in both of those examples there. And I joke around. I saw a tweet. It was a great tweet. It was like, one of the worst things Trump's ever done is make me defend Jimmy fucking Kimmel, because I really can't stand the guy. I think he's just another collectivist, a statist shill, a mouthpiece for the government that really is waning in popularity. He's barely holding on. He's really a laughing stock and irrelevant, I think, is the proper word for him and his show. And if the network decided to can his ass for that reason, then, more power to them. That's great. But the fact that the suspension came because of the pressure of the federal government and the FCC, that really sucked. And honestly, something to keep in mind, especially for a lot of people who like ABC and even more so those who like Disney, is that these are simply just corporations that are going to do whatever they have to for money. They don't identify with you. They're not interested in how you feel. They're not interested whether you feel represented. They're going to do whatever makes them the most amount of money and appeal to power and to authority. So I figured that was worth noting. But yeah, regardless of what Kimmel said, and I've read the transcript, I watched what he said, I heard how he said it. It was a nothing burger. It was way more tame than most of the things being said, and most of the things that are still being said in a joking manner, I will say, which is totally fine today. And I think that just more so goes to prove that this was a targeted attack by the administration, considering Trump had also tweeted after Colbert got booted that he was coming for Kimmel next. And he got his wish and sort of used Kirk's death as a sort of a fulcrum. I think that's the right word. I'm trying to sound smart. To sort of pressure the networks to get that done. And despite all that, he came back about a week later. So really not like a huge, tremendous time off air or a real punishment. But still, it sets an upsetting precedent if, again, you care at all about freedom of speech and freedom of press. And then when he came back, of course, he gave another nothing burger. Sorry, the dog is scratching. I don't know if you can hear that into the microphone. Another nothing burger monologue where it was full of sort of apologies, sort of not. Didn't really want to offend anybody, and just sort of went back to being boring old Jimmy Kimmel. But how disappointing it was to watch the right and the moderate center, I guess, for lack of a better term, cheer and applaud that he got the boot. The groups that were so outraged and upset and raged against the complex that was cancel culture were now the ones propping it up and cheering for it. And the same people also went around hunting down and doxing people who were saying things about Charlie Kirk. And even in, to use Charlie's own words regarding those talking about his death in a not so great way, and even Kimmel's monologue, Charlie said there is no such thing as hate speech. There's ugly speech. There's mean speech. I'm not sure what else is in the tweet exactly. I'll put a picture up of it. But all speech is protected under the Constitution. And again, if you are a freedom absolutist, you hold that point, and you have to hold that point, especially if you exist in, I guess, the quote unquote the gun sphere or gun culture, because if you don't, and if you say that there are words that are violent or that drive people to violence, that's no different than blaming the guns for the shootings that take place. And we know how absurd that is, right? How many guns do we have sitting around our house and in our safes that aren't wandering the streets shooting people or talking to us like the Green Goblin mask, right? Guns don't kill people. We've been over that a million times. I'm not going to waste my breath on that anymore. Just like words don't kill people. Words don't drive people to kill people. Again, it takes a very mentally ill individual to hear words, to read tweets, to then go out and justify taking a life, doing harm to people, or violating the natural rights of others. Now, I realize that may sound like I am discounting the fact that propaganda is effective, that conditioning is effective, and that people's minds are very impressionable thanks to social media and the 24-hour news cycle, and just the insanity and the temperature of the world that we live in right now. But words celebrate the canceling and the doxing of Jimmy Kimmel and those celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. You're no different than those who are calling for gun bans and stricter gun regulation because they think guns kill people and that guns are the problem and not sick people, and a lack of means for us to protect ourselves from the sick individuals who are only multiplying thanks to the conditions of society today. So all that to say, very disappointing and sad to see so many people who held what I consider to be level heads during the whole cancel culture, Me Too, and COVID eras. Just go ahead and turn around and act just like the very people that they abhorred and they called to stop doing the terrible things that they were doing at the time. And that just sort of goes to show that this political theater, if you're going to participate in it, you have to be insane. You have to be completely uninterested and unwilling to be better, for a better future, for a better outcome. And to participate is simply to continue the negative trend that we're on that got us to where we are today. So if that doesn't make my stance clear on the Kirk stuff and the Kimmel stuff, there you have it. I won't really linger on that too much anymore. Also, recently there was that shooting and arson that took place at the Mormon church in Michigan here, which was a real odd one. Not much has come out other than we've identified the shooter as being a Marine vet. Republican from what it looks like. It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense why he snapped, why he chose the target that he did. Luckily, it seems like only one person was killed. A few were injured. That's tragic, but considering that it was a church, and that churches by their design are inherently just shooting galleries, it's a miracle that more weren't killed and injured. Obviously, it is still a tragedy. And again, I've said this before. If you attend a church, if you attend a school, if your children attend churches or schools or any other soft target like that, you need to be discussing with the leadership there and, action plans, defense plans. How are you going to make that location a harder target? Because again, excuse me, my voice is giving out because of the very long weekend that we had with minimal sleep and also being stalked by a bear. I'll get into that later. There's a reason why he chose the church. There's a reason why he chose the target and the victims that he did, because he knew he would be able to drive into the building, shoot it up, and light it on fire without any force to meet his. And that's just a fact. He didn't go to a sporting event where there could have been cops outside or within. He didn't go to a concert where there could have been cops outside or within. He didn't go to a bank. He didn't go anywhere else. He went to a church. Like, and I've said this as I punch the mic, I've been over this a million times. We protect our money more seriously than we protect ourselves and our children. And so the time to start having these conversations with the leadership of these institutions where you trust things that are infinitely more valuable than your money was a long time ago. And if you have any self-respect and you realize you have free will and an internal monologue, please start having these conversations seriously, or maybe even consider moving if this is a concern for you and if you really take this stuff seriously. And that's another important thing too. And I'm going to linger on the church thing a bit. And I know I probably told the story before, but I got into this the last time given the Minnesota church and sort of school shooting, with my parents and my family. And, you weren't, I'm going to lean on the church angle here, right? As a Christian, as a Catholic, as whoever, whatever faith you may have, you weren't given free will by your God, and all the blessings that you were given simply to hope that it doesn't happen to you. Obviously pray, obviously have faith if you're so inclined. But for the most part, I may be going out on a limb here by saying this, and this shows my ignorance to some different religious and sort of subsects of Christianity. But you weren't given free will, assuming you were given free will and you believe you were given free will, to just sit there and close your eyes and hope that just because it happens somewhere else, that it won't happen where you are on any given day. And the reality is, statistically, it's unlikely to, but it's never a 0% chance. And again, we do what we do in the space. We train, we collect gear and kit, and we remain informed and aware and prepared. Not because we look forward to having to use the things that we have, but that in the unfortunate event that we do have to reach for a firearm, for a plate carrier, for a helmet, for whatever, for a first aid kit, for an IFAC, for a tourniquet, whatever it is, that we have the confidence in our ability, right? This was the Art and War podcast. I think it was Mitch while he was still on who said this, people always, there's a popular phrase, people rise to the occasion. That's not true. You fall to your lowest level of preparedness. It's why you practice sports. It's why you practice an instrument, right? You don't just expect to show up to a game or a recital or a concert without practicing at all and just going, oh, due to the pressure of the event, I'm going to be perfect. I'm going to put up a triple double. I'm going to hit every note. I'm going to be in tune. I'm going to be on key. No, you're going to be out of shape. You're going to miss every shot. You're going to be out of tune, out of key. You probably won't even know how to play the fucking instrument. And so it's not that we do this because we're hoping that one day the church shooter walks in and tries to kill everyone in the church and we get to be the hero. No, it's that when it does happen, we will have the best shot in that moment of keeping ourselves and our loved ones safe. And that's all that it really is about. So yeah, you weren't given free will just to ignore that and hope things just work out for the best. Again, Pope John Paul II said, your religion and how you practice it must work like an airplane. One wing has to be faith, the other wing has to be like reason and logic. You can't just jump off a building saying, because I believe and love God, I will be delivered safely to the ground. That gravity and the laws of physics are a thing, and so apply that logic here. That being said, it is very interesting. I am very interested to see what comes of the investigation of the shooting, why he chose that target, what happened to him to sort of push him over the edge. He is a vet, though. I have personally known vets as family friends who have gone out in some very fiery ways. Not like this, more like suicide by cop, but, all medical related from what I have seen that have sort of pushed veterans to this point. And so if I was a betting man, that's what I'd say, but we don't really know anything right now. And as, the killing of Irina Zaruska kicked things off, that footage, that video, I think sparked something in a lot of people. And boy, did they try to bury that. Did they try to make that hard to find, hard to follow, hard to get to the bottom of? Because I think that was a very oh shit moment. My dog just decided to start playing with a squeaky toy, so brace yourself if you start hearing things. I think that was a big oh shit moment for the state, in which they told the media, they told social media to get that shit, through the news cycle and out of the, hearts and minds of people as fast as possible, because I think that sparked a very real fire in people and a shift in attitude of just rage. And yeah, you had some people going Democrat cities, but I think for the most part, everyone who saw that, it didn't make it a political issue so much as it was a human issue of it's time as like individuals, as fathers, as sons, as men to really start thinking about how the fuck we're going to make this place better. And that was a beautiful silver lining in the sort of shadow of a really hideous event, really dark event. And then shortly after the Charlie Kirk assassination happened, that was inherently political. So, of course, it took a little bit of a different attitude. But again, another very sharp increase in the temperature, I would say. And now the church thing, which isn't as big as the others. But I feel like now every event, every headline for that matter, but big, killings right now are moving the needle more than they used to, I think. And I sort of look at it as like almost like a volume sort of like meter, like bouncing as there's fluctuations in output. And I mean, I saw in my mind and from what I felt from just observing social media, from hearing conversations at work, from talking to the boys, it felt like we were pinning in the red with Arena and Kirk. And I feel like we're still floating around, the nines, the eights. And so that's not to say something's going to kick off, but it's definitely, there's a really uneasy overtone right now. And, nothing ever happens. Nothing has happened. Knock on wood. But again, I've mentioned this before in almost every episode, the speed at which things are happening and the severity of said things seems to only be going up. And so do with that what you will, get your house in order, make sure your shit's clean and accessible and ready to roll, ready to rock. And I just hope that the same attitude that I sort of got from people in the wake of, Arena's killing is what grabs more people than not. Most bots in the terminally online are obviously stuck in the red versus blue debate. But that attitude of, that could be our fiance, that could be our girlfriend, that could be our daughter, was way better than the left's killing the right. Democrats are killing Republicans. The blues are telling people to kill the reds until they get their way. That gives me a lot more hope, as a silver lining, than the retarded bickering and the trying to get people canceled and fired in the wake of everyone watching a dude's neck get blown out on camera. I'm not really sure where I was going to go with that, but just an observation and just a general sentiment that I had picked up in the wake of all these events, and just an overall, I guess, sort of quick check-in on the temperature and the volume level of society. Seems elevated and very sensitive, very volatile. So just keep your eyes, your ears open. Don't be, pinning the stress meter. Don't, lose sleep over it. Don't be, jumping at every, boom or creak, that you hear. But, you weren't given free will just to not have an internal monologue and just, get blown around like an amoeba throughout life. And in a similar vein, actually, and this is related to the quote of the episode, I've been reading more Frank Chodorov. In a prior episode, I mentioned I read his work, Income Tax, The Root of All Evil, a spectacular read, and shockingly relevant to the attitudes of today. Quick summary: he sort of broke down how we came to have an income tax in America, a federal income tax in America. How the attitude of the nation at the time sort of encouraged, or sort of drove rather, representatives to implement the federal income tax, and then how they completely raped the Constitution and just general English definitions to get the income tax forced on everyone's throats. I don't want to spoil too much of it because I think it's an incredible read, and it's for free as a PDF online, so absolutely go read it. I may put it up on the website, actually. I may start adding these to the website. I don't see why I don't, just to have sort of like a library and like a reference point. But The book I'm reading now by him is called One is a Crowd. But this is more so like a biography. And in this, he explains how he came to the system of beliefs and the opinions that he has. And there's a very interesting quote in it. Actually, I'm not actually sure if I want to share it here. Oh, fuck it, why not? Not really entirely relevant to the thread I'm trying to go on regarding Chodorov. But this is written in 1951. And as he's giving an introduction to his early life and how he, started tinkering with ideas about why society is the way it is and what really drives a lot of the problems in society, he came to his first hypothesis was that religion was sort of the root of a lot of the inequalities and a lot of the struggle and the fighting in society. But before he sort of introduced that first theory he came to, he felt the need to address that he was Jewish, actually. And in his, and obviously, as you'll hear here, he really renounces his Jewish heritage. He never really practiced the religion. He never really acknowledged the traditions, and really was more so like a rebel running around with the kids doing hood rat shit with his friends. But in this paragraph, he says, "Then there is the attempt to give the Jews a nationalistic definition." And there's an asterisk here, and I'll go back to this at the end. "If I adhere to this idea, I say to myself, I am part of a political entity which lost its physical reality some 2,000 years ago. This nation exists in the record of its past, its cultural continuity, and its well-advertised manifest destiny. It is a nation without the physical appurtenances of one." Interesting word. "Examining that fancy, I ask myself, can 2,000 years of history be wiped out as if it never happened? What warrant have we in nature for the persistence of national entities? Has not every state carved out its career with sword, and when that sword lost its edge, did not the state disappear? It is interesting to read about the ancient Greeks, to study the records of Aztec culture, or the unearthed artifacts of lost empires. I would like to know why these social integrations disappeared, why such highly developed civilizations could not maintain themselves. Such information might help me foretell the course of civilization of which I am a part, but I feel no call to fight for the restoration of a state which exists only in poetry. Citizenship in a state without authority is a contradiction. Furthermore, the ideology involved in the proposed restoration smacks too much of Hitlerian nationalism based on racial purity, reinforced with the claims to divine selection. It defies the record and is decidedly dangerous." And here's where the asterisk is very interesting. This was obviously written before the advent of Israel. The argument is still the same. This new state, despite the arguments of professional Zionists, is by no means a continuation or revival of one ruled by Solomon or Caesar. It is brand new, and I feel no more attachment to it than I do for one that is presumed to be its predecessor. There is a strident group in this country who insists that American citizenship does not absolve the Jew from loyalty to Israel, that he is in fact vested with dual citizenship, the stronger of which, judging by their demands for financial help, is in the newly acquired half. That is silly. In the event of conflict between Israel and the United States, not an impossibility, since geography might compel Israel into the USSR camp, which of his two loyalties would lay first claim on him? Or perchance would he take up arms against himself? However, if loyalty to Israel is the identification of a Jew, then I declare unequivocally that I am not one. So that's Frank Chodorov in a nutshell there. And again, written in 1951, before the state of Israel as we know it was even created, before AIPAC, before everything that we know and meme and hate today. He wrote that down. And again, the book isn't even, this particular writing about him isn't even about this. It's about individualism, actually, and natural law. He ended up reading a lot of Henry George, and taking a lot of the concepts he learned from George and about natural law to a place in a park where he lived nearby, where every week there would literally just be a forum. A bunch of guys would just gather around, in the park, and they would sort of duke it out like you see in those YouTube videos where it's like 1 versus 20 or something, where people sit around the debate table and can jump in and debate people on certain points. That's literally what he was doing back in the day with this group of people in the park. And you can talk about anything. You could debate about anything. And he tooled his theory about individualism and natural rights in this forum. And he came to find that when discussing natural rights and, the problems in the world, there was nobody who was really able to I'm going to butcher it really. There was nobody who was able to really go up against him um, in the camp supporting collectivism and government, because running the scenarios to their extreme, they would always be in direct opposition and in violation of natural rights of people, regardless of religious background, regardless of religious belief. And I'm not even done reading it. I'm hardly halfway through it, and it's already an incredible read. And I posted in my story as I started reading it because the introduction was so great, um, about the need to find individualists, and bounce ideas off of each other and help each other sort of find ourselves and understand ourselves, because the nature of collectivists would, logic would have that they would dominate education, they would dominate the media, they would dominate government forums, right? That's who they are. So the individualist, by his nature, would be more introverted, would be more focused on what's happening in his own backyard, in his home, within himself. He has no desire really to go out and, put his opinion and his words on other people, control other people, pass down laws that affect other people. He has no interest in that. And so he gets trampled over. He gets, missed, especially in a day where everyone is so online and quote unquote connected. But if you believe in nature and, the laws of nature, logic would have that there would be just as many individualists as there are collectivists. Just as a child is born male or female, nature indiscriminately chooses which sex the baby is born as. And so if you believe in that, which that, fewer people do every day, I guess, then logic would have it that there's just as many individualists as collectivists. And we shouldn't be wasting our time in these 1 versus 20 debates, in these change my mind, YouTube talking point style sort of rage bait, quote unquote debate settings that so many people participate in now and even before. We'll get more into that. Is you're not going to change anyone's mind. You are wasting your energy, and you're inherently turning away individualists because they would be disgusted by that behavior. They would have no interest in listening to you or siding with you in that display of, just peacocking and attention. And how we do that, it's like the forums like Chodorov attended. It's, the groups that we're likely in now, the group chats that we're in now. It's a slow grind. But individualists are tough cookies, are tough nuts to crack. They're stubborn, they're to themselves, and they're just as opinionated as the collectivists, of course. But we had people to our group, not every day, but I'd say every month or so, we had a few people in. We don't even make that too much of a conscious effort. We end up having people come to us now, which is pretty cool. But maybe it is a forum. Maybe it is a set time at a coffee shop. You guys continue to show up and have a conversation. I know there's a group near me that does that every day, I think, and particularly every Saturday morning. And it's very cool to see. And I've seen young and old folk alike come in and sit down and talk to them. That's a great way of doing that too. They're not changing people's mind. They're simply talking about what they see in the news, and people share their opinions, and so be it. And maybe one day you decide to talk about how the income tax is an absolute scam, how Social Security is a scam. And then you sort of go from there. Don't, and I put this in my story, don't scare these people, you fucking retards. Don't go all extremist on them, right? Start simple, start basic, taxes, bad. We don't like taxes. That's right. The roads, wow, those are really bad. Public versus private ownership, stuff like that. And then you can get into stuff like self-defense is a human right. It's not an extreme, so on and so forth. Where that goes in terms of how society is structured today and the insanity that's running the shop, who knows? But in the words of Trump, nothing bad can happen if you do it. So do it. The autism announcement. How great was that, right? I think we all know a few people whose mom took a little too many Tylenol when they were in the womb. At the end of the day, the funniest part of it isn't that obviously that he couldn't speak or that he was just as coherent seeming as Biden was, but the fact that he couldn't say acetaminophen, and so he had to say Tylenol. Objectively, so funny, absolutely hilarious. But at the same time, to sort of go back and speak on what I spoke of earlier about the insanity of participating in the political world in this red versus blue sort of horseshit arena, you have pregnant women now taking Tylenol as a form of protest. The same people who told me, to get jabbed or I should go kill myself or something because I was a threat to society, or that I shouldn't have a job, I shouldn't be able to have the same freedoms as everyone else, are the same people who are popping pills in protest of the president. And now, trust me, I don't believe that the president and his cabinet are the sources of all wisdom and knowledge, but there are several studies and even communication directly from Tylenol going back to like 2017 and the early 2020s, where it was proven that it could be harmful for the development of the fetus if acetaminophen Tylenol was taken during pregnancy. And the brand Tylenol themselves have also said that they do not recommend taking their product while pregnant either. And while that disclaimer is very much like every firearm company telling you not to carry their gun with one in the chamber as a liability thing, all of that is still sort of like, it should be a bit of an eyebrow raise, right? Like you could probably take something else or do something else if you're in pain. But if there's so many things that are sort of saying this might be bad or this could be bad, you probably shouldn't be taking it while you're pregnant anyways. Do I think that is why we have such a high rate of autism in this country? No, that's not the sole reason. Could it be a contributing factor? Maybe. But I think we got a lot more going on, and it's not just that. But that being said, I don't think taking it while pregnant is probably good. Again, you're not allowed to dye your hair, eat sushi, eat cold cuts, or do 100 other really weird things while you're pregnant in fear of it impacting the child. So I don't think it's that insane to think or to sort of deduct that popping pills while pregnant and certain type of pills could also have similar or worse negative effects. That logic sort of tracks for me. But yeah, how insane it is to, use like that as a form of protest, and keep that in mind the next time you go do something retarded or you feel the need to do something retarded in the red versus blue realm, because you're going to look just as dumb to them as they do to you. Speaking of that, yeah, I have a run of flags in the works. After the autism announcement came out, I made a couple of flags. I drafted up a design of a flag rather, and it's in production. The patches should be here any day now. Early October is the ETA I got. So when the AM patches are in, those are going to be shipped. As soon as they're shipped, this site will be updated. I will have flags listed for sale. The come and take it autism pride flags. Um, in honor of the great autism announcement that was just made. I will also have a new sort of variant of shorts that are going to live on the site full time. Um, Fuck it, I'll explain those now. I've teased them on the story, but they're going to be like chocolate chip camo on the outside. It's still going to have the Full Metal Cast logo on the right leg, the hang 'em all in the symbiote font on the left leg, front and back. But chocolate chip camo all throughout, and the pockets are going to be DNC, which I think are kind of cool. Similar to how the Miami Tiger shorts are Miami on the outside, and they have like a black sort of night tiger on the inside of the pockets. So those are going to live on the site permanently. I like those shorts. Got a lot of good sort of feedback on them. I'm going to keep them at the cheap price they're at. I'm going to keep that, 2 for whatever deal I had on the Miami shorts on these as well. Just so you can get a bunch of shorts for cheap and not feel bad about sweating in them, getting them dirty, beating them up, shooting with them, cleaning with them. And then with that, I'm also going to give away another helmet. I have another Crusader helmet, another Wilcox shroud that's going to go on there. So that'll be another giveaway with the flags and the short drop. I also this week, I'm tooling with a new humidor design as well. It's a travel humidor that I'm working on. It's smaller than the 50 cal can, obviously. Got a lead on a bunch of really cool first aid kits that are perfect for like a little travel humidor, similar to the one that I have from other brands like I think it's Zixar and whatnot. So hopefully I can just find a good way to line that with some wood. And if it comes out looking clean enough, those will hit the site soon as well. So stay tuned. I think I'll just talk about the weekend that we had up at Xander's property in lieu of HTA being canceled. There's a lot of speculation as to why it was canceled. No one has an official reason. I saw that the OTG guys were still able to use the shoot house at BFR where HTA was going to take place. So uncertain as to why the range day itself in its entirety couldn't play out as scheduled, which is kind of a bummer because, we got our refunds back for the courses. But I have like $1,000 Airbnb that I can't refund now because it's too late. Thankfully, the host seems to be accommodating and will allow us to reschedule. Hopefully, she'll let us reschedule a year out without consequence or penalty. Because I'm assuming it is going to have to be next year, given how late we are in the year. But anywho, we've got it at Xander's place. Showed up late Friday night. Unpacked, loaded up some mags, drove down to where he had a berm and a range set up, and did some shooting under nods. And at night, always a riot. I'm very happy with that Hollow Sun. I think it's an LS321 unit that I have. I had it, then I chucked it in the safe. I thought it was too anemic. I wasn't impressed with it, but as I got more familiar with the controls, as I got more time in the proper environment with it, I'm impressed with it. I do like it. It's not as powerful. And the quad who was with us was rocking the Penumbra by AMMJ Detroit. Marvin's doing excellent stuff. That unit is very impressive, and it's an excellent unit. It obviously performed the Hollow Sun unit as it should. It's double the price. But again, the Hollow Sun held its own at a closer range. As you step back to 50 plus yards, you start to see the differences. And even at 50, it's not like that It's not like that obvious that the Penumbra is like that much stronger. But it is a stronger unit. It's full power, as well as the Hollow Sun unit is more civ. But I'm happy enough with it. I like it. It's a solid unit. I trust it. And it's going to live on the gun. I also got to run the Castle Group 1.93 inch riser with the Lead and Steel PB3 under nods and during the day. And again, very impressed with that. I like that setup a lot. You don't even realize that you are shooting and looking through a pistol dot, which sounds crazy. But the way that riser sits, and obviously the window on the PB3, even though it is an acro footprint, pistol dot, the window is very large. Everything, it's very light. It's very ergonomic. Sight acquisition is snappy. It's quick. I don't feel like I'm hunting for the dot. Very, very pleased with that setup. So that being said, if anyone has been curious or wants to try it, please, by all means do so. Again, nothing bad can happen. Yeah, the YHM Yankee Hill, Fat Cat, which is the new suppressor I'm running. Shorty, really funky looking suppressor, shooting out of a 13.7 AR. The sound signature, everyone made a comment about the sound signature of that can. We had other cans there, long boys, some SOCOMs, no other like shorter sort of style suppressors on the rifles. But the sound signature, I was told, was the most pleasant. From what I've seen, the actual decibel rating isn't lower compared to other cans, but the signature, I can say for a fact, is very different. You lose a lot of the sharpness, a lot of the high end, I guess, if you will, on the sound signature. It's not as snappy. You don't really hear the crack. You get a real bassy thump, though. If you're standing behind it or next to it, it's a real, it's a bassy sort of punch. But that being said, to me at least, I think it sounds a little more appealing. I'm a big fan of that can. I like the way it sounds. The only negative, I have two big negatives with it are mounting solutions. Given its awkward shape, you are somewhat stuck using the direct thread mount that they provide. Unless you want to go like Silencer Co. hub. But in doing that, you end up adding an inch-ish or so to the overall length of the can, which defeats the purpose as to why I got it in the first place. I had like a 6-inch Silencer Co. Chimera on there, which is a 30 cal can. I wanted to shorten it up a bit, which, is fine. I can use the direct thread thing. It's not like that big of a deal. What sucks about that, though, is that the adapter that you're screwing the suppressor onto, they say it's like a break. That's very generous. I'll share a picture here. It turns without the can on for whatever reason. If you had to take it off, it turns your rifle into a 30 round flashbang dispenser. It turned night into day. Like, I know Quad took his can off. Hey, stop licking. Stop. Sorry, the dog's licking. He's not supposed to be licking his leg right now. Quad took his can off and fired his brake, which I'm not quite sure what it is, but it barks. It's bright. It's it's not pleasant to be around or look at. And then I took this can off because just looking at this thing, I'll see if I can snag a picture of the brake that acts as the mount for the Fat Cat. It's very minimal, and the flash it left at night backs up that statement, because holy shit, I cast Fireball and Divine Light at the same time when I pulled the trigger. It was batshit crazy how bright that was. And then this may be a product of that. It also may just be a product of the way the can is designed. I noticed that it doesn't do the best job at concealing flash there. And I noticed it under nods at first when I was shooting. I saw like some what looked to be like sparks sort of coming out the end of the rifle, end of the can. And then when I went back and was watching some of the footage from the camera and my glasses, I noticed that I was picking up some of that as well, not under nods. So that's not great. I'm going to do some reading and some research to see if maybe it is a product of, oh, thank you, buddy, of the muzzle device that it's sort of mated to. But those are the two downsides. They are somewhat large cons, and it is a weird can, so I understand it's not going to be super conventional or perfect, but the sound signature and the shortness of it, are two big pros as well, and those are sort of outweighing the others at the moment. And that's not to say things won't change. So that's just where I am with that. We did get stalked by a bear. I did say I was going to address that. At the end of Friday, picking up the dog to console him. Okay, that didn't work. um, at the end of the night on Friday, we lit a fire, hung out outside, drank, smoke, listened to music, had a great time. And then at around like 1:30 or so, the fire is sort of dying down. We weren't eating; we were being extremely loud and obnoxious. But the fire is sort of starting to die down a little bit, and Demo goes, "Something smells like death." And my retarded ass goes, "Well, we're in the middle of fucking Michigan. No civilization, really. It's definitely a Wendigo." Um, and then Quad and Xander go, "Yeah, that actually smells like a bear, sort of." And so immediately everyone runs back to the truck, grabs their rifles and stuff. And we sat there for the next hour listening to sort of branches and twigs snap, and the smell sort of swirling around as the wind shifted. So that was fun. We didn't find anything. We didn't see anything. But it was very clear, like just a decaying, just nasty smell that smacked us out of nowhere. And it lingered around. It came and it went from different, angles throughout the night. But no bear or Wendigo, unfortunately. And we would have killed either if we had seen them. We did hear a deer hitting antlers against a tree in the distance, some coyotes howling. They're very, very far away. But yeah, nothing that came within the vicinity of the camp. That we marched around a little bit in the woods after we had a suspicious feeling that we were being stalked by something. So nothing really came of that. The next day, woke up, great breakfast, got the shooting again. Let me tell you what, Mossberg Shockwave. Oh! Oh, yeah. Stupid fun gun. You shoot that thing one-handed, you are the Doomslayer. And I want one just as badly as I want a TX-22 with an FRT in it now, after watching that PSR video. That shit is an absolute riot. Love the Mossberg Shockwave. We blew up a scuffed Labubu that whispered things to me that my coworker made and left on my desk at work. You can check out that YouTube video. I only put it on YouTube, didn't put it on Spotify. It's like a 2-minute, just stupid video of us blowing up this stuffy with tannerite. But yeah, absolute great weekend. We made the most out of a shitty situation with the Airbnb and HTA being a no-go. I'm looking forward to doing sort of more of that. I think it's going to be it, just short of an hour here, it looks like, for me. But yeah, I highly suggest thinking about whether you're a collectivist or an individualist, and just be wary of where your thoughts and your actions are sort of lining up on that spectrum. Just go from there. Don't waste your time trying to convince or a collectivist or change their minds. Focus on yourself and the individualists and those who you know and you love around you. That just goes back to controlling your controllables, really. So with that, I'm going to call it. Again, sorry for the delay. I was MIA, and then audio gremlins will never cease to plague me. But this one should be good. So as far as audio goes, I couldn't tell you if the content's good or not. It's probably dog shit. But anyways, thank you. Until next time, stay metal.